Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and I'm an attorney that assists physician assistants with employment contract and independent contractor agreement issues. Today I'm going to talk about tail insurance for physician assistants. So, what is it, and some red flags to think about if you're ultimately responsible for covering your own tail. So, first, there are two main types of insurance in the healthcare industry. You have occurrence coverage and claims made. And so an occurrence policy simply means a policy has to be in effect when the malpractice incident occurs. So no additional insurance is needed. If you have an occurrence policy, you're covered forever. You don't need to worry about tail insurance. Now, claims made means a policy has to be in effect when the claim is actually made. And so it is possible that you leave the employer, your contract terminates, the malpractice claims made policy terminates, and then there's going to be a gap in between when the last patient you see and then the last day you can be sued. Most states, 2 years is kind of a general limit, or the statute of limitations is what we would call it, on suing someone for a malpractice claim. Now, there are some exceptions for minors, and some states may have a little bit longer or shortened malpractice period. I'm just speaking generalizations, so we'll just use 2 years as the example. And so if you had a claims made policy and the contract ends, you need a policy that covers the gap in between the date the contract terminated and then the last day somebody can sue you. And that's what tail insurance is. It just covers that gap. Now, some cost scenarios. Generally, a tail insurance policy costs about twice what your annual premium is. So your annual premium is just how much it costs to insure you on an annual basis. And so if you take that number and double it, that's usually a good estimate of what you can expect to have to pay for tail. Now, tail is not a recurring amount, meaning you just pay it once, your tail is covered, and you don't have to pay any more after that. You don't have to make annual payments for tail. Now, who generally pays for tail? Well, that's completely contractual. It just, whatever it says in the contract will hold, and this is a negotiable thing. If you're in a healthcare network or hospital environment, it's unlikely you're going to have to pay for your own tail. Maybe some like small rural hospitals will make their providers pay tail, but it is very uncommon that if you're working for a hospital that you should pay your own tail. Many of them are self-insured. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but just know if you're having to pay for your tail and you work in a hospital, that's probably something you want to revisit. The most common scenario where you'd have to pay tail is if you're working, for like a private physician practice, or a small group or some kind of outpatient setting. Most of them will then have a claims made policy, and then they'll put the responsibility to pay tail on the provider. Why would they do this? It's cheaper. That's why. A claims made policy is about a third less expensive per year than an occurrence policy. And so they're saving a third on insurance per year. And if they put the onus on the PA to cover their own tail, they don't have to pay that either. This is something that is negotiable. Now, for a PA, malpractice insurance is not like exorbitantly expensive. I'd say the average PA, probably around $2,500, would be a good estimate of what you'd have to pay for your annual premium. So in that case, you double it, your tail cost would be $5,000. So not prohibitively expensive, but certainly an amount of money that you prefer not to pay for if you don't have to. So this needs to be negotiated in advance, and the language in the contract needs to be very clear. It needs to state, who is covering the annual premium, and then who is responsible for paying for tail insurance. If you're an independent contractor, usually you'll have to cover your own malpractice. Sometimes they'll cover it, but if you're an employee, they should at least pay for your annual premium, and then you would be responsible for the tail cost. So some ways of getting out of paying for tail. One, if you stay with the same insurance company, so like let's just say you're at a practice, they use, insurance company A, you leave the job, your new job uses insurance company A as well. Usually they'll roll over your policy into a new one. You don't have to pay tail insurance. You could get nose coverage, which is where your new employer pays your old tail. That would be almost considered kind of like a signing bonus. And then obviously the third way is that you negotiate that the employer pays for your tail. One strategy that's been effective is tying your length of time with the employer to the percentage that they pay. So I'll give an example. Let's say they say, no, you're responsible for tail. We could come back and say, all right, if I stay, if I leave before the first anniversary, I'll pay 100%. If I stay, or if I leave within the first and second year, then you pay a quarter, so you pay half, 75%, the full amount, something like that, where you can tie how long you've been to a practice to how much they pay for tail. That's usually palatable to the employer because they obviously want their providers to stay with them as long as they can. And so if you've been somewhere 4 or 5 years, you've more than made up, a $5,000 tail cost. So that's a little bit about tail insurance for physician assistants. If you have any questions about tail insurance, your employment agreement, independent contractor agreement, feel free to contact my law firm at the information listed below in the description. And I appreciate you watching the video. All right, thanks. Take care.